Shabbat Shalom again.
Shabbat Shalom.
So a question. If you had to make a list of the most important characters in our Jewish biblical story, who would be on it? You won't get this wrong. It's not a quiz. I'll even give you a prize maybe if you answer. Just if for your list, when you think of the most important Jewish characters, did I see? Abraham, great answer. He seems like a good one to make the list. Who else? Moses. All right, were any of you thinking Moses? Right, good, okay. I should have had a family feud board or something like that. That would have been maybe a little more enticing. Anyone else? Abraham, Moses? Noah. Okay, I like that. David. The king, I assume you mean. Yes, there are some Davids in the room, but King David, yes, good. These are all great names. Anyone else? Ephraim and Manasseh. I like that too. Great, important characters. Any ladies? Miriam, good. That's a good one. Sarah, good. Okay, these are all great characters from the biblical stories to name. Maybe Joshua could have also come to mind, or King Solomon. Jacob, that's where we get the name Yisrael, after all. Some people with Hanukkah coming up might have thought of Judith, Yehudit, very, very famous in our Hanukkah story, but doesn't get told a lot. All sorts of great characters with great names. And tonight is turning out to be a Shabbat really about names. So I'd like to add another character onto that list that I really think should join the ranks of the most important characters in our biblical narrative. And this one actually comes from this week's Torah portion, a Torah portion that begins the story really of Joseph and his brothers and that family drama. But I can't add a name to the list because this character doesn't have one. But he arguably might be one of, if not the, most critical and pivotal characters in our biblical narrative that we have. The Torah portion, Vayeshev, opens, as I said, the Joseph story, and most of us are familiar with this tale, either from Sunday school or Hebrew school, or perhaps Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber, maybe Donny Osmond for some of us. A brief review: Joseph, the favored son of Jacob, the despised brother of his siblings, is sent to check up on his brothers who are supposed to be tending the family's flock at a place called Shechem. On the way, the Torah says that Joseph bumps into a person, in Hebrew an ish, wandering in the fields, who asks Joseph what he's looking for. And when Joseph explains he's looking for his brothers, this person tells Joseph that the brothers left Shechem and headed to Dotan. This is quite a distance from Shechem. It would be like saying if you thought he was on the way to Winnetka, instead he was on the way to Gurnee. So it really required a route change. And as such, Joseph changes his route, and he finds his brothers, and then the story unfolds. So we have to ask the question, what if Joseph had never bumped into this guy? He was just a guy wandering in the fields, literally a nobody. But if he hadn't bumped into this wandering person, there would have not been an encounter with his brothers, no pit, no sale into slavery, no faked death with the proof of a blood-stained, multicolored coat, no journey to Egypt, no rise to power, no help for the famine-suffering Egyptians, no saving of his own family, no less the move of the Israelite population to Egypt, no Moses, no exodus from Egypt, no 10 Commandments, no promised land, no Jewish people, no nothing. All at the hands, or rather the words, of one anonymous person. So who was this guy? Our commentators suggest a range of options. Perhaps he was an angel sent by God to direct Joseph's actions so the events could unfold as God intended them to. Perhaps he was just an ordinary person with no real purpose that he knew of, and he just happened to set in motion a series of events. One commentator suggests that the man was an unwitting guide sent to Joseph by God to bring him to his brothers, to set his destiny in motion. And whether he was an angel or a random person, this nobody in the story turns out to be a most important messenger. In fact, that word for angel in Hebrew, malach, it actually means messenger. So this man may very well have been an angel, but different from what we commonly associate angels to be. This was not a supernatural being, but just an ordinary person who, unknown to himself, had the potential to fulfill the divine will. And that comes to teach us something very important, that each and every person, every one of us who can sometimes believe we are a nobody, is actually of the utmost importance. That what we say and what we do matters, that our words and our actions have an effect on those we encounter, both when we are conscious of this fact, but also, and perhaps even more so, when we are not, for good and for bad. Judaism is rooted in the notion that each of us has endowed within us the charge to carry out a divine purpose that might not have anything to do with our job or our assets. The trick is we don't get to know exactly what it is or when that will be actualized. That's why we are encouraged to take care to bring the very best of ourselves to every situation, even the ones that seem like random happenstance encounters that wouldn't otherwise register on our radars as significant moments. It is true that one brief encounter with a nameless stranger ultimately assured the future of Judaism. If that's true, what then could any of our own encounters with anyone else set into motion? In this season where the days are short and darkness abounds, we pray, should always remember that each of us has the potential to bring powerful light that can guide the way. That when we choose what we say and what we do, we should do so with integrity and compassion every time, with the spirit of goodness and peace, because every encounter we have has the potential to make a real difference for another person or perhaps the world. Shabbat Shalom.